Heyo, peyote. Alright, I believe this is number 5 of the stories of my life, which isn't so much stories, but just, I wanted to eradicate just from my word repertoire, from my speech pattern. And, well, it's not really so much stories of my life, but in a way it is. And right now, for instance, I feel anger inside of me. I cannot tell why. Maybe because I drank something which I didn't want to. Maybe there is a need in myself that I am pushing away to favor another need, which is my greed for creating content. Because I believe that as long as I just keep creating content, at one point people will like it eventually. But that means, it has to be what I want it to be. And that's why this image, I don't remember what it was called, but I will remember it when I name this video, because then I'm going to look at what the name of the image is. And it's about the reason I stopped to eat meat and most animal products. You see, everybody has some kind of idea of the world. And although some people like to standardize their opinions and their beliefs for everyone, because then they feel safe and secure and they think, oh, if everybody thinks the same thing, I know what's going on. But the truth is, you don't. You just force everybody to believe what you believe, and you may call it science, and you may back it up with, some kind of weird statistics that you probably just threw together, in a way that it would suit whatever story you're trying to make out of it. Because if it's in terms of science, then I can go onto the internet, probably right now. I won't do it because I know it is so. And then I can look for scientific papers that gonna tell me that coffee is good. And then I'm gonna look for papers that tell me that coffee is bad. And in the end, I sit there and I think, wait, what is coffee now? Is it now good or bad? Am I supposed to drink 5 cups a day, or just 1 cup a day, or maybe 1 cup a month? And that's where I say, I have the feeling, science has nothing to do with finding truth. No, it's just has everything to do with opinionizing certain things. Because some people seem to have an interest in me having a certain opinion about one of their products. And that goes also for meat, and that goes obviously for all kinds of things. Amongst others, things like what's the word? That's not it. It's somewhere hidden in the image. I don't know. But yeah, there's all kinds of opinions, And, I cannot say everything I want to say here. And that's okay. Because like some people would phrase it, not everybody has to speak their mind. No, just the one that's the loudest. And the loudest is usually the one that sells the most products. So yeah, I've been shouting at the top of my lungs my opinions and beliefs. But yeah, it's very hard to get through to people these days because there's so much bullshit being hammered into space by anybody who has some kind of interest in selling things. And so yeah, people can tell you that aspirin, is a useful tool of alleviating head pain or the flu or whatever. Well, I think, no, a good tool to get rid of headaches and such thing is to do a detox and to change your diet permanently to something that suits you personally. Like, not your neighbor, not your mother, not your siblings, not your sons or your daughters. No, you personally. You have to have a diet that you feel good with. And the way I see it is that most people have diets not according to their needs, which isn't just bodily needs. Oh, I have to eat 2,000 calories a day. No, it's more like spiritual needs. Maybe your spirit wants certain things, and others it doesn't want. My body, my spirit, feels disgusted of myself if I eat animal foods. Like, eggs seem to be okay somehow. Meat is not. Gluten makes me heavily depressed. Or you could say, gluten turns me into everybody else. Because I have seen people eating gluten. I haven't found anybody who's still looking happy afterwards. They always look like bloated and heavy, like, and they just want to go to the couch and sleep. But that's even what they want, right? That's why they eat it. Because they want to go to the couch and sleep. Because the alternative would be, to feel something. And that's highly scary for most people. And so, what I can tell you is that for me, for instance, meat, I've eaten meat. I've eaten a lot of meat. I've eaten meat, and I grew up in a family that ate meat, and it was normal to eat sausages and all kinds of things. I don't remember as a child if I ever said I don't want to eat meat anymore. I don't remember that. But I also don't remember anyone ever really showing me or telling me what meat actually is. The way it's been done, you go to the supermarket, you buy a package of meat, and then you go home and you eat it like it's something else. Like you eat it like it's some carrots. Like you don't actively think about that it's some kind of colon, like, the thing where shit moves through, where you stuffed the animal itself into. I mean, just imagine doing that. Like, just think about what it truly means to eat a sausage. That you take an animal and you kill it, you take its life, and then you tear it apart bit by bit, you cut it bit by bit to pieces. And then you take the colon and then you rinse it and take out all the shit. And then you force the leftovers of the animal that you just killed into its own colon. I mean, how much more can you degrade a being? I mean, that's just showing that you have no respect for this animal whatsoever. That's how I see it. To take an animal, to kill it, rinse these things, mash it up, and then squeeze it into its own colon. or into the colon of another being. And then you eat it and then squeeze it through your own colon into a fucking toilet. And then you feel good about defecating and eating. And what I realized, some people, they actually eat sausage not because of the sausage, but because of the spices and the taste. And when I smell meat, when I smell how meat is being made, I don't think it's disgusting in that way. I just know I don't want this in my body because it's dishonest. Because the meat, how it's being told to us, what meat does for you, is a complete lie. Because I haven't eaten meat in, I would say, two years. I ate meat once in a soup, but I didn't know it was in there. And then I ate it again, although I knew it was in there, because I was in a mosque with Muslim people and I didn't know how to say no to it, because it felt like it would have been disrespectful. And my solution to that instance was not going to that mosque anymore, which was good because I'm not a Muslim and I don't share their kind of way of seeing the world, of reading a book and finding meaning in that. I don't have to read the Bible to find meaning or guidance. I just have to open my ears and listen to, the voice of my own heart or myself. Anyway, so the way I see it is that often I feel like eating meat. And then I realized, because I was living in South Africa, and there you can get wild meat. So impala or kudu, like antelopes that have lived in the South African bushlands or in the savannah, and that then are killed by hunters from trucks in great numbers. Like impala is usually the antelope that you see the most. There's also usually quite a lot of kudu. Sometimes you get eland, which is more like cattle, taste like. It's like quite soft in comparison. Of course, then stuff like ostrich, but that's more farms. You don't really get wild ostrich meat. That's more, you have a farm with ostriches and then you just kill them. And they also have huge areas where they have free roaming, fenced in free roaming cattle. I mean, everything in South Africa is fenced in anyway. And so a lot of the, even Kruger Park, I mean, these places are more like farms than national parks, is how I see it. But that's just the way it is. Other countries like Tanzania, for instance, it's a bit different. The last time I was there were no fences. While I was in Africa, because I always had the feeling, I would be okay to eat meat if it would be truly free roaming and I would hunt it myself, or at least would know the person that has hunted it. But I think as I see it now, I don't really need it. Sometimes I still feel like it, but I just know I would never eat meat that comes here from a supermarket. I would have to see that the animal actually lived, and that was already in South Africa. although they were claiming that this meat was from free-roaming animals, I wasn't really sure if that was true because I heard stories that they also had sites of mass production. And so I was buying impala, but I also was buying cattle, but also impala and sometimes ostrich. And, I ate quite a bit of meat, and I cannot say if it was really bad for me. Wait. Wow. All I can say is that I stopped for the reason I started slaughtering chickens in South Africa because I was living close to a village, and I would walk there, get a chicken, and carry it back to the camp. And then I would cut off its head with a knife, and then I would pluck it and take out all the organs, and then I would eat it. And I had no problem doing this, and I also liked the taste, in a sense, and I always realized that it's quite weird because as soon as you've killed it, before I felt kind of emotional about it. But as soon as it was dead, I had no emotional attachment to the animal anymore because it was dead. At the latest, when all the feathers were taken off, it was just like, I don't know, like a cabbage or something. Yeah, and then I put it with butter and garlic and onions and potatoes into the oven until it was like nice. Anyway, so there is not really a good exchange for a Sunday roast. Or, if you want to make a chicken in the oven, there is no real exchange for that because, you could use a lump of, like a big fat lump of tofu. And then you would have to spice it, of course. And a lot of people that talk about, tofu tastes like nothing. Well, do you eat your meat without salt and stuff? Because usually the way people eat meat is with a lot of fat and salt and spices. And that's where I'm going to get back to the biltong, which is beef jerky, but South African style. And I often feel myself longing for biltong. And there was a moment where I felt myself longing for it. And maybe I was doing rapé, and then a voice came up and it said, "You just want the spices." But what do I want the spices with, right? Because spices have a lot of essential oils in them. Like there's a lot of spices, like for example, cloves. Sometimes I chew on cloves to, for tooth hygiene, but also there's a lot of essential oils inside of cloves, which are very valuable for the human body. And so when I make a soup, I add bay leaves, lentils, maybe broccoli, or maybe, spinach. And then I add cumin. It's always better to just take the whole seeds instead of the ground stuff. And then you can take pimento, or you can take, right? All kinds of spices. Nutmeg, that's great. Cinnamon has a lot of, you have to look that up. I just know that these things, the spices, are a very important part in my food, in my diet. Sometimes I eat quite a bit of turmeric, black pepper. Yesterday I made myself a cacao, and that basically pushed me through to doing all kinds of things during the night. I was hitting like a very low point, and I was working on this 6-hour video I just released. I think it's called "If You're Shooting for the Stars, Something with a meteorite. I don't know, read it yourself. And I was really at a low point, standing in front of my screen. But I made myself a cacao and I used coconut milk, not all of it, not the whole can, maybe it was like half can left. And then I filled it up to 3/4 of a liter. And then I added 2 tablespoons of cacao powder, more like 3, like 2 maybe really heaped ones and maybe 3 not so heaped ones, teaspoons of cacao powder. And then I added probably like 1 teaspoon of garam masala, but the one without garlic and stuff. So there are garam masala spice mixtures that have also like garlic in there, but there are also some which don't have that. Like you also don't want to use one where there's salt in, although you might add a pinch of salt to your cacao. And so I made such a beverage. I also added, I think, 2 to 3 teaspoons of sugar, raw cane sugar. I don't know if that matters, if it's raw cane sugar or just like the really other stuff. And then I added black pepper. And when I was hitting that low point, and I knew I still have 2 or 3 images to go through, I felt, I was hating it. I fucking hated doing this. But I just drank the entire thermos bottle. I always put my hot stuff in thermos bottles so I can drink it over longer periods. But I just drank it, 1 cup after the other. And then I pushed through. And at the end of this pushing through and finishing that video, I felt good. I didn't have to smoke anything. I didn't have to do whatever. Of course, I also did other things. That wasn't the only thing I did. It's always important to remind yourself all the things you did that led up to you feeling the way you feel right now. And that's why if you do eat meat, you have to start paying attention to the way you feel about it, and you have to start educating yourself about the way that meat is being processed and handled, also when it is still a living being. So you don't have to watch these things for hours, but if you just want to watch these documentaries such as Earthlings, or What the Cow or something it's called, or What the Milk, I don't really know. Like there are some of these documentaries out there about the meat production. And I've seen some of these things in school where I've been shown the transportation of cattle to the slaughterhouse, where some of these cows, they were so weak. The cow couldn't walk anymore. And then they used a crane to pull the cow up on one leg. And while they were moving it with the crane, the leg would rip off and the cow would fall to the ground. To these animals, yeah, it's actually a good thing because, whatever Jesus was, he said, you are what you eat. If you eat animals, especially the animals today, you become more like an animal. But that's not true because animals aren't vicious creatures that kill for pleasure, but humans are. I don't know. Make up your own mind. But humans can be different because they have been given a choice. And I made a choice at some point. I have to look at these things. What is meat really? And I realized I don't want it. I don't want to eat it. I still have to probably face the decision if I'm going to be at a place, maybe in an indigenous village, and they hunt animals there in the village. And I know these animals have been roaming there free. I do believe I would eat it. I have also eaten insects already, but that gave me a weird feeling. For whatever reason, it just disgusted me. I don't think it's necessarily bad to eat meat, but I believe it's bad to eat this kind of meat because it's full with, there you go, vaccinations, because these animals live in very, very, very restricted areas which are prone to a lot of disease and infections. A lot of the milk cows have infections in their joints, and all the farmer wants that the cow can keep producing milk. A lot of these cows have infections in their ureters. And what do they do against it? They inject them, maybe through the food, but also through like injections with a syringe, antibiotics and all kinds of things. Like this is being fed to them so that they don't get sick. So you see what that means. They're taking care of the body, but not of the spirit, because the spirit of the cow, would be living on a meadow and kicking its hind legs into the air. But not in our world. No. You take the lambs or the calves away from the mothers, and then you either raise them until they're big, and then you slaughter them, or you just slaughter them when they're young already. And, that's just the point. If you drink milk, you are also financing slaughterhouses. Because if you want milk, right, you need bulls and you need calves and you need cows. That's just how it is. And you cannot deceive yourself into eating cheese and believing that that's better, because it's just the same shit. I believe that milk is even worse because the cows are just going to be exploited until they no longer can give anything, and then they're gonna be killed anyway, and probably gonna be sold as mince or sausage. And I cannot help it, but if I see people eating meat, and that includes people in my close relations, which aren't many, so, that reduces it to some kind of like family stuff. I just see them as animals, because that's what they turn into. That's how they treat each other. But not even, because animals don't treat each other that way. They just become more vicious. I mean, a dog is a dog. It's quite a kind animal, right? It doesn't pretend to be something it's not. But humans do that all the time. They pretend to be good when they're really shit. Like you put on a suit and you stand in front of the camera and you read something or you say something you've learned by heart, and everybody just claps at you like, oh, good job. They're saying we need at least, once a week we need meat, but, it's better if we eat because it's so important. I mean, there's people like milk farmers who believe you need milk for your bones. Well, I've read scientific papers that say drinking milk actually makes your bones weak. And what I'm saying is, ever since I stopped eating meat, I can only say I feel generally better. If I feel like I want to eat meat, what do I eat? I eat lentils and I eat chickpeas. Because if I want meat, what I generally want is protein or fat. And I can get that by making a chickpea soup, by soaking chickpeas overnight, and then cooking them into a soup with maybe salt, bay leaves, turmeric, black pepper, or curry powder, curry madras or something, and bay leaves, I said that maybe, cloves, right? Coriander. There you go. You just cook that. You soak them overnight. You buy dry chickpeas. You soak them overnight, best in filtered water. And then the next day you cook it. Like you soak them for 12 hours maybe. You can even soak it for a whole day, but let's say 12 hours. And then you cook them into a soup. You can first fry the onions with some coconut fat or something until it's like nice and caramelized on maybe, I don't know, medium heat or something, or a bit more under occasional stirring. And then you add the spices for a while, like you put the bay leaves in, the cloves, maybe the coriander. You stir that, and then you add the turmeric and the cumin, and then you stir that, and then you put the chickpeas in the water in there, and then you add more water. I don't know how much, just enough, because they're gonna soak up a lot of water and they're gonna expand and get soft and stuff. And then you cook that for an hour, and you can add black pepper still and salt to your liking. You can even add chili if you like that. And then you eat that. And then you've got a lot of protein. I mean, if you don't want to cook that, if you feel like eating meat, you can just replace it. It's my opinion. You just go to the store and buy a can of kidney beans or of chickpeas. And then you just go home and you just add salt or something, or you can add smoked paprika or even a bit of soy sauce. I don't really like soy sauce that much. Right? And then you just eat it. And then you've got protein. But I also like cooking. I like making my own food because I don't know what they do with the chickpeas before they can them. I don't know what they add. If I buy dry chickpeas, I'm fairly certain that it's mostly just chickpea in there. And then I can soak it with filtered water. And I don't know what kind of water they use. And I don't know what, being canned in a can with all kinds of metals in there. I'm going to eat partly some of those metals. And what I've realized is, through all kinds of things, by doctors injecting stuff into my body, because some of these things that they inject into you have quite a bit of heavy metals inside, and that's gonna make you, guess what, heavy, because this shit piles up. And then you eat all this meat and drink all this milk and eat all this cheese because you've been told you need it. Well, I say you don't. Nothing of it. You don't need that shit. Because it's going to make you more heavy than do you good, is my experience. This feels like quite a long episode. Oh, it's actually okay. 33 minutes. So to me, if you want to know how you truly feel about eating meat, you have to educate yourself about what it is you're actually eating. Because to just look away from it and treat meat like peppers isn't really gonna cut it, because deep down you know what you're eating, or at least you're gonna feel it. Because if you eat meat, this meat is gonna have emotions that the animal felt before it died. You're gonna eat that and you're gonna take it into your body. And that's why I believe the only meat that one should eat is truly free-roaming stuff that's probably being hunted not with a gun, but with bows and arrows or something. Because there's a different thing about hunting like this. That's what I believe. Everything else is just lying to yourself. So stop doing that.